Ladies and gentlemen, Democratic Detonation, the second post-release premium Warbond to come to Helldivers 2, is now available for purchase, bringing new weapons, cosmetics, a booster, and armor sets to the war effort. Obviously, new stuff and new ways to spread and manage democracy is always a win for the community, and Helldivers 2 is pumping content out at a crazy pace, so we are well and truly spoiled. But with the Warbond costing 1,000 super credits, it always comes down to a question of, is it actually worth your hard-earned credits? And as a bit of a heads up, folks, I'm not too sure about this one. So, g'day there once again, viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today, folks, we're taking an in-depth look at the Democratic Detonation Premium Warbond available in Helldivers 2 and working out, is it worth your time? So, just to build a bit of context here, guys, at the time of recording this video, I have had a chance to use all of the weapons in the Warbond against both Terminids and Automatons, and I've had some squad mates run the new booster in an operation or two. While I haven't had a chance to use all of the new armor sets yet, I do like that we are getting a light, medium, and heavy armor in this batch this time around. That in itself gives the Warbond a little bit more value, at least to me personally, in seeking more variety in the armors that we do get. I will admit, while I don't typically like to run heavier armor types, the absolute chungoose of a heavy armor set that is in this Warbond does look really cool. I mean, Homie is just here not to just commit, but also invent some new war crimes, I think. But returning to our focal point here of the weapons, this is very much a mixed bag here, and I don't think we've really gotten anything that is a true standout in this Warbond. Of course, there's some nuance to that depending on the difficulty that you're playing on and the enemies that you're facing, but yeah, I can't really say the weapons here have wowed me like, say, the Sickle did from the Cutting Edge Warbond. Let's dive into each of them now with a bit more detail, starting off with the BR-14 Adjudicator. I'm not going to lie, guys, this is the weapon that I actually thought I was going to be most excited for when I first saw the Warbond trailer. A brand new, fully automatic marksman rifle that was going to be a heavier hitting alternative to the assault rifles in the game, that was meant to excel at sniping out weak points on heavier targets as opposed to just, holding a more crowd control approach. A true quality over quantity weapon with full auto capabilities. And look, that's exactly what we got to a certain extent. However, in practice, it's a weapon that feels like it's consistently fighting against you while you try to use it for what it feels like is its intended purpose. Allow me to explain. The unique element here is obviously that it's a full auto marksman rifle, but as we can see in the gameplay here, the recoil that is on that full auto mode is just straight up unusable at any distance beyond 25 meters or so. And look, I'm not going to claim to be the next prodigy son of Shroud here in this video, but I'm also not a terrible FPS or third-person shooter player, and I had a really hard time putting the Crosshair on this thing to target unless I jammed it back into semi-automatic mode and treated it very much like a traditional DMR. And yes, to be fair, when you do that with the weapon, it does come alive a little bit more. Being able to spam the trigger a bit more with the DMR-esque weapon is a lot of fun, and this thing compared to the Diligence or the Counter Sniper feels like an F1 car overtaking a Hyundai i20, comparatively speaking. But despite this saving grace, I did catch myself wondering after all that, if I'm gonna be locked into this semi-automatic mode, why wouldn't I just use the Diligence or the Counter Sniper in place of the Adjudicator, where I have more damage per shot to rock with? Both alternatives carry far more damage per shot over the Adjudicator, and that alpha damage is what becomes key when you're locked into that semi-automatic fire mode. Every shot is about accurately and precisely knocking out threats and making the most of the fact that, well, you're not full auto, right? And more so, you're preferably going to be targeting weak points, right? The extra damage on offer to the other weapons makes them a far more reliable option when you're locked to that semi-automatic mode based on the damage payload they carry. And because of that, the Adjudicator feels like it's been muscled out by its own brethren in a way, right? I feel like the Adjudicator could be a real contender in the game if the full automatic mode was a bit more stable. The damage is definitely there when it's rocking that full auto fire, but the recoil strips it of any consistency that you need for it to be a true mainstay in your armory. The smallest tweak to the recoil could easily shift this weapon into a really good spot, but in the meantime, this really ain't it yet, folks. So the Adjudicator is not really the best start to this premium Warbond here, but is it an outlier, or does it set the tone for the rest of the weapons going forward? Let's jump onto the R36 Eruptor here, the second weapon available for unlock, and arguably one of the more unique weapons to have been added to the game yet. The Eruptor is ultimately an explosive bolt-action sniper rifle, firing a rocket-propelled shell that will detonate into shrapnel either upon impact or after traveling a set distance, detonating like an airburst shell. And yes, it's as cool as it sounds. To a point. The amount of AoE damage that this thing drops is pretty intoxicating, I can't lie. Things like Bile Spewers, Berserkers, Striders, Devastators, Hive Guards, Hulks if you get a rear shot, just fall away to this thing with some well-placed shooting. Sometimes completely one-tapping multiple targets if the grouping is right. I can't even begin to tell you how satisfying it is taking out Devastators in particular with one shot with this thing. It very much feels like a return to sender against Rocket Devastators in particular. And it's almost always going to result in you staggering an opponent as well if you don't kill them outright, which is another very nice benefit to the weapon and managing large groups of targets simultaneously. Honestly, the Eruptor is the first crowd control weapon that we've gotten in the game so far that is more of a, again, quality over quantity entry in my opinion. You know, crowd control through one big shot rather than a bunch of small back-to-back shots. But that's not even the best part about the Eruptor, in my humble opinion. The Eruptor also carries some incredible utility as well by being able to close bug holes and snipe automaton fabricators, which means that you can either save your grenades for something else, or even opt to take stun grenades instead. Wild, right? It can also target things like spore spewers as long as you're within the maximum travel range as well, but in the name of efficiency, you're probably still better off resorting to long-range EAT or quasar shots to deal with those objectives. On the topic of maximum distance here, I think this max distance for this weapon is around 100 meters or so, but don't quote me on that. I've not had a chance to extensively test that range as of yet, but funnily enough, it was one of the first things that tripped me up when I was using the weapon because I tried to snipe an illegal broadcast tower from a country mile away and I got nowhere with it. So just be aware of that when you're rocking this thing. Unfortunately though, the maximum distance is not where the limitations for this thing stop. It's a very cumbersome weapon to use, requiring you to bolt a new round every shot, being very hefty to aim and taking time to get the crosshair on target, and it also has a very small magazine size. So on high-end difficulties that demand quick movement and rapid back-to-back target acquisition, it can feel a bit sluggish for times where you're really looking for something quick and easy for a primary weapon slot. But on, say, difficulty level 7 for both bug and bot operations, I could see this weapon being a fitting play. Which, folks, that leaves us with the final primary weapon of the Warbond here, the CB9 Exploding Crossbow. And shit. Just when I thought things were looking up and things were good with this Warbond, we've come somewhat crashing back down again, if I'm being honest. Unfortunately, the crossbow takes everything that we had going for us with the Eruptor and just kind of poops on it big time, you know? Like, seriously, it satisfies the rule of cool element for sure, but as I'm sure you guys can see from the gameplay in the background here, this thing just really ain't doing the job here. I mean, it kills the small stuff well enough, but against anything that has the smallest semblance of armor in the game, it very quickly feels like you're up shit creek without a paddle. Aiming the bloody thing also feels strange as well, and there will be times where I thought my aim would be on point, only for the round just to go whee and yeet past an opponent's head, just off of the slightest inconvenience. And aiming for the ground and relying exclusively on splash damage here also felt incredibly underwhelming, especially in comparison to the Eruptor and the kind of splash damage that it brings to the table. There is a good chance that I'm missing something with the weapon here, maybe I'm not using it right, but at this stage, I'm really sorry to all my crossbow enthusiasts out there, this just ain't it, and there's nothing but disappointment waiting for you at the end of the line here with the primary weapons, which is a really big shame. Unfortunately, that disappointment extends to the thermite grenades here as well, but I think that that might be a bug instead of mechanical operation, if you will. I've had times where I've stuck, you know, things like Hulks 2 to 4 times with these thermite grenades, only for the things to deal no damage whatsoever. So I've got a feeling there's a bug in the game right now that means that thermite grenade damage is not being correctly applied. Now, should that change in the future, these things could be awesome and could be an epic change out for the impact grenades, but for now, they just aren't working as intended, so I can't recommend you using them. And quickly touching on the grenade pistol as well, which is available as a secondary weapon slot through this Warbond. This thing is going to be a great utility addition to any loadout. It basically gives you 8 free impact grenades that you can use without having to, you know, use a grenade slot. So clearing out, again, fabricators and bug holes is this thing's specialty. It's really far from ideal in actually, you know, combat and dealing with enemy units. So that's sort of where I see this thing sitting at the moment, as a utility add and a way to sort of change out your loadout a little bit potentially. So from a weaponry perspective, guys, that is the Democratic Detonation Warbond. And look, I don't know if I can, in my right conscience, actually recommend this Warbond at the moment as a must-buy. I don't know, the weapons in here are cool in theory. Again, the Eruptor is a lot of fun to run with, the BR-14 Adjudicator with some slight tweaks could be fantastic, and the Crossbow is, well, just a crossbow. It's a flavor add at this point, quite frankly. But objectively looking at what this Warbond brings to the table and what weapons are here and, you know, how good they are in dealing with the majority of the threats that come to the game, I can't in good faith recommend you guys go out and buy this thing immediately. If you've got a ton of super credits lying around and you've even gotten to the point where you've sort of future-proof yourself for the next Warbond that's coming out, then sure, blow your super credits, have some fun, and, you know, enjoy the flavor that these new weapons add to the game for you. But if it's coming down to a question of you've got 1,000 super credits, do I buy this Warbond or the next one that's coming out? I'd personally be waiting at this point, at least until we see some balance passes on these weapons. The booster in this pack as well, I think only brings down the extraction timer by around 20 seconds, which is, again, not exactly game-breaking and not something that I would argue is a must-have over the other boosters that are in the game right now. It just feels like you're better off spending your money on, say, the Cutting Edge Warbond or the Steel Veterans Warbond at this time. But I am hoping the developers do some time to take a quick look at the balancing here and make some amendments accordingly, because I feel like these weapons could be fantastic if they just saw a couple of tweaks here and there. But folks, with all of that said, that is today's video on the Democratic Detonation Warbond for Helldivers 2. If you guys have got it, let me know in the comments section down below how you're enjoying it. Do you like the new weapons? Do you think they're great, mid? Let us know down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, please backhand the like button, as it does go a long way to supporting the channel. And if you're new here, consider subscribing whilst you're at it, guys. It'd be lovely to have you here for the journey for the long run. But once again, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.